I'm past the point of return, it's for the legacy. You know the road can feel cold, but this my destiny. No more pretending or tripping over excuses. Temper flare, need to take it out on music. On a mission to be prolific, my objective is quite specific.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Resilient Man Project. I'm Jonathan York. I'll be your guide on this journey to resilience. If you're listening on Apple, top right, 3 dots, click on follow the show. I'll be waiting on you on Wednesday mornings. Resilient Man Project across all social media platforms. ResilientManProject.com has the links to everything. If you like video, Resilient Man Project on YouTube. All social media, Resilient Man Project. If you get in that situation, you need somebody to reach out. I'm the guy on the other end. I'll be the one messaging you back. Had a mentor of mine, Marshall, hook me up with this guy right here, man. I'm looking forward to this one. Zack, ROI Williams. What's up, bro?
Yeah, what's going on, bro? Marshall's dude, he's an incredible human being, and I'm looking forward to making some major things happen with him. So I appreciate you for having me, brother.
Yeah, man. Marshall's a good dude, man. We clicked pretty instantly from a really not even like a just more like a friendship, brotherhood type of thing, man. He's been a positive, and he brings a lot of energy to my life and stuff. Sometimes I need that, man. He's a good dude.
Man, we all need it at some point, even the highest performers, bro. Like, we all have our days, and especially it's just like with anything, bro. Like in the gym, the stronger you get, the more weight you add on your shoulders. You know what I mean? So it's like in everything in life, whether it's a man, at first you got to get used to being a man. And then you got to get used to being a husband, and then you got to get used to being a father, and then like it just keeps going, right? In business, you start off as like maybe an employee or whatever the case, and you kind of become management level, and then who knows, maybe you go executive level or C-level, or maybe you branch off, start your own thing. But regardless, you're constantly growing, and as we grow, we constantly adding on more and more. So it's, bro, I don't care who you are, that you can name me 100 of your mentors, and all 100 of your mentors have mentors.
Dude, that's right, man. You're right about that. Absolutely, man. I was doing a little digging before we got on. I see you got a book coming out here pretty soon. You writing a book?
Yeah, man. I'm really, really excited about this. This has kind of been like a decade in the making. Before, it's like, you ever seen like a big dog, like a Mastiff or a Great Dane or something that, like, even at a young puppy, like their paws are just massive, and they even sometimes will get scared of their own paws. Like, they don't understand what they're going to step into. They don't understand the feet that they have. And, about a decade ago or so, as this kind of journey, unbeknownst to me, started developing and who I am today and where I'm going, I had so many people asking me, like, or telling me, like, I need to start a book. I need to write a book. And I was like, no, man, that's not me. Who am I? Right. And, I was like that puppy. Like, I was too scared of understanding like what shoes I was going to be filling. And so here we are, my book is actually launching. It'll be April 13th of 2023, which is a decade anniversary of a motorcycle wreck I had that basically set all of this in motion. And through that process, all these people that used to ask me to write a book, I never knew that the shoes that I was going to fill, but here I am, like, finally stepping into those shoes. So it's an exciting journey for me, and it's definitely something big for me to bring to the world.
Hell yeah, man. That's awesome, man. Well, hell, speaking of that journey, man, let's get into that a little bit. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah. I mean, so I know you and I kind of spoke offline here about transitioning this more into resiliency from the business standpoint. And in order to get to that, I might have to take you back a little bit. At 19 years old, I started a clothing line called It's What We Do Clothing. And still is, to this day, is one of my most proud accomplishments ever. I mean, I've literally got it tattooed shoulder blade to shoulder blade. It's insane how big that tattoo is, but it's one of my favorite tattoos, and it represents so much. At a young age, I just liked hanging out with my homies, and I liked what all we did. And at the time, we kind of came from a wide range of people, and it was always kind of based around some extreme sports. Specifically, at the time, I was doing MMA, and I was riding motorcycles, just being young and dumb. And we ended up coming up with a clothing line based around a saying we just all kind of commonly said, which was like, it's what we do, right? You know, people would ask us like, man, what possesses you to get in the cage with another grown man? And you know, the whole objective is one of y'all walks out, right? And like, I don't know, man, it's what we do, you know. Why do you get on your motorcycle and do 180 miles an hour, ride them, you know, wheelie at 120? Bro, I don't know. It's just it's what we do, you know. It's just, it kind of encapsulated like all of our, you know, internal desires into a phrase. So I created a clothing line out of it. And at the time, you know, it turned out to be much bigger than me. I mean, we blew up. I call it, you know, like locally, you know, famous, right? You know, everyone, you know, in our age range knew who we were and knew what we were doing. You know, we had a big movement locally, and it ended up getting pretty large as far as we were never millionaires over it, right? So I don't want it to blow it up into something that it's not. But also we had shirts in Japan and Canada and Mexico, right? Like we had, you know, there was probably about 24, 26 states that we had t-shirts in, which at the time, being young and not knowing what you're doing, was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was just a lot of fun. And that's all it really ever was just a lot of fun. Again, young, dumb, didn't know how to spend money, didn't know how to make money really. Well, I knew how to make money in corporate America, but as far as like being an entrepreneur, I never really saw myself as that. I was, you know, this was just like a side hustle for a little while. And then it started transforming into something a little bit more, where I saw that at the time, us in the industry that we were in, we sold the most amount of clothing at these events that we were sponsoring, right? Like whether it be a car show or a concert or this or that. Just like when we went and set up a booth, luckily we established enough of a culture that a lot of people came out with us. So we were like those kids that everyone wanted to be around. You know, there's 20, 30 of us everywhere we went. I mean, and honestly, it became a joke where we couldn't even go out to eat on Friday nights together without having to call in reservations, because there was literally 20, 30 of us that just mobbed everywhere. It was just kind of what it turned into. So again, I don't want to like diminish my own, you know, my own mental state or success back then. But again, you know, it's going to sound a lot cooler than it really was. But at the time I was like, you know, if events are where we establish the most dominance and sell the most amount of shirts, like we need to be able to control that environment a little bit more. So we kind of branched off and started an agency that threw events at different, you know, local clubs, local bars, restaurants, you name it. And I was like, you know, if we can make this work, not only can we make money on the entertainment side of things, but we can also make money by just selling the merch and being able to control that atmosphere. At that point, there was no other conflicting sponsors, right? You know, we would go to these concerts or whatever where everyone else threw the show, and there might be other clothing sponsors. Well, here, if we're throwing the events, we can control who the sponsors are. We can allow sponsors to come in and help mitigate costs, but also exclude any other clothing lines. Yeah. So, man, we launched that. And then by the end of the week, we ended up with 6 events in 5 days in 2 different cities. It just blew up like crazy. And we ran that for about 2 years. And then April 13th, 2013, my world came to an end, literally, as my Harley came to a complete stop. Someone hit me head on. I was doing about 55 or 60 miles an hour. They were doing about, about 30, 35. So it's about 90 miles an hour to a brick wall. And it ended up causing $1.2 million in medical bills with me. I mean, I was in ICU for 4 weeks. They didn't think I was going to live. In fact, after the fact, I found out that if I had coded one more time, or if it had gone much longer, I wouldn't be here today. Like they were fighting to keep me alive. And, you know, I was in the ICU for 4 weeks. I went through 27 emergency surgeries in 9 days. I went through 9 emergency surgeries in 7 days. I went through 27 units of blood in 9 days, which is about the equivalent of bleeding out 3 full times. Your body holds 8 to 10 units of blood, and I went through 27. And man, just long story short, through all that, ended up losing my house, losing 2 Harleys, losing my car, all my finances were gone. Just complete devastation. And, from that point on, I had to go back into corporate America about a year later. I went about a year without a job, and got back into corporate America. And it was a pretty devastating pill to swallow because at the time, I'm 23, 24 years old at this point. And prior to the wreck, I was making, anywhere between 100 and 120 grand a year. So it was very successful in the eyes of like the law of averages of what your average American makes, and especially at a young age.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, coming out of that, again, I'm still a kid, 23, 24 years old. And I think it was about 24 when I actually started to get back into working, because I spent my 23rd birthday in emergency surgery, actually. But anyway, so call it 24 years old. And at the time, prior to the wreck, I was making, between $50 and $60 an hour if you break down what I was making hourly. And trying to get back into, corporate America, no one wanted to offer you anything but like, $15 to $25 an hour. And for me, just mentally at the stage I was in my life, I was a hard pill to swallow. Like that was really hard to wrap your head around, taking that big of a step back. And I was in the gym one day when one of my friends kind of was catching up. We hadn't seen each other in a while. He's kind of seeing how I was, what I was doing, how I was mentally. And we got on the topic about entering the workforce again. And I was like, dude, I'm just not going to do it. I can't go backwards like that. And, he was like, well, how did you get to making that kind of money at such a young age, regardless? Right. Like that's, I don't know. I've never looked up the data on like, age ranges in corporate America, but like, I'm imagining it's a small pool. And so he was like, I responded and I said, man, I worked my way up. I took what I could and I busted my ass. My work ethic showed for it. I went above and beyond with everything I did, back then or still now. Like my big thing is I don't want to have to ask someone like in the job. Like I want someone to come to me and ask a question. I don't want to have to go chase the answer. Like I want to know what that answer is. And that's kind of what propelled me up the ladder, the corporate ladder. And so I kind of responded with something similar to that. And he's like, well, if that's what you did, then why can't you do it again? And that kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like, shit, man, like it's a good point. Why can't I do it again? And, and after that conversation, kind of reflecting on that myself, I was just like, I was at home and I was like, it really isn't taking a step backwards because I'm not making anything right now. Like I'm broke, I'm poor, I have no money, nothing coming in. So like, it's still better than nothing. So ended up getting back into corporate America. And it took me about a year to get back up to the level that I was at. And at that point, I did the same thing. I replicated myself. I jumped back into, corporate America / running some side hustle stuff and just really kind of getting my confidence back up that, I could do this. And that went on for a while. And then eventually, we're going to fast forward now after kind of jumping back and forth from corporate America to also corporate America plus side hustle and never really turned back into a full-time, that entrepreneurship, if you will. But anyways, about 4 years ago now, I stepped away from corporate America for good. I worked my way back up to I was making about 150 grand a year in corporate America. And at the time, I'm like, I don't know, right around 30, maybe 29, maybe 30. And, at this time I'm married and I had a 6-week-old baby. And then I had one more light switch that went off where, I realized that I was going to have to be comfortable watching my 6-week-old baby grow up through a cell phone because someone else dictated my schedule and told me what to do. And if I needed time away to spend with my wife or daughter, I had to ask someone else for permission. And I decided enough was enough and then I was not going to be that person. I knew that I have the capabilities of being my own boss because I had done it prior. And at this time, I'd be lying if I hadn't said that I'd been planning this for about 9 months. So it wasn't a cold jump off the deep end, but it was also kind of a cold jump off the deep end, because even though I've been preparing for this, I came home one day and, it was like, 7 o'clock, I guess. I walk in the door and my wife greeted me at the door like she always did. And I looked at her, I looked at the baby, and I said, "Hey, we're doing this." Like literally, like, I'm not going back to work tomorrow. Like, we're doing this. And she had my back, and I mean, the rest has been history. The original mental goal of mine was to just be able to pay bills. And at the time, we had paid off a lot of debt. And so our debt to income ratio was ridiculous. Our debt was only like $3,500 a month to live. It's not what it is now, but at the time, it wasn't a whole lot. And so my idea was like, hey, we're jumping in this pretty much cold turkey, essentially, even though I've been mentally preparing for it. And I've got notebook on notebook on notebook on notes and courses and everything, because that's what I was doing. I was working, 8 to 10 hours a day, coming home, spending some time in the evening with my wife and daughter, and spending, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a night going through courses and doing research and just getting everything prepared. But I didn't have like a book of business, if you will, for what I did. Like, this was like starting over. So anyways, the original mental goal was just to make ends meet, right? $3,500 a month. If I could do that, I don't know what that math is, probably like 40, 50 grand a year, something like that. I was like, I'll be happy. Well, we closed out books at the end of year one and realized that we did $361,000 in revenue and put about 147 grand in our pocket. So I got to, I'm not going to say I bought all my time back, because obviously I was working, but I got to work from home and be with my wife and daughter. And essentially took a $3,000 a year pay cut, and I'll make that deal all day, every day.
Heck yeah, man. That's a hell of a story. So no like formal education in business, none of that stuff.
No, man. Believe it or not, it's been a wild journey as far as like what I thought I was going to do. Right. Coming through high school, I finished high school going through like a police department training program that was like basically preparing you to graduate and go onto the force. I mean, kind of like ROTC, but for, the police. So I went from that in my senior year to somehow ended up in art school for college, for graphic design and photography. And then from there, that was kind of how I got thrown into the marketing world. Was I never expected to go to do anything marketing, but kind of got thrown into it just because like I knew how to design flyers. And it originally went from like, oh, well, we'll have him design these flyers and here's what you need to put on it, to it eventually got to, I was like, all right, cool. Like, I'll make all these flyers. What do you want on it? And they're like, I don't know, figure it out. So I had to like work on the other side of my brain, not my creative, my critical, and start coming up with concepts. And that's when I fell in love, for those of you who don't know who I am or what I do, but I'm in the marketing industry and have been for, at this time, about 16 years. 13 of that's been in corporate America, and 3-4 years of that, I guess about 17 years now. We're in our 4th year of doing it in private sector. But, that's where my love for marketing came from, was just kind of getting thrown into it and realizing that I could put things on graphics, on whether it was print, because, you gotta imagine 16, 17 years ago, we didn't have social media advertisement like what we do now. So a lot of it was still some guerrilla marketing where I was printing out flyers that we had street teams like passing out, handheld flyers and stuff like that. And, I started realizing that the words that I put on paper could turn into money for the organizations that I lived in. And so I started falling in love with, how can I make this better? What strategies could I come up with? Like, how do consumers think, right? And what are words that I can say to make them do business with us versus our competitors? So that's where I fell in love with it. But outside of formal education, bro, like, no, Learn from the streets.
Dude, that's what. Me too, man. That's why I asked that question, is because I'm, don't have quite the same story, but I definitely about a year and a half ago jumped off the deep end. Went from making, I think my last W-2 was 220 something grand, to really rough first year. Not gonna lie, but it's a lot of horrible decisions, a lot of mistakes, and a lot of growth, though. A lot of expensive, hard lessons learned. But running a business and the concept, and then the actual like administrative and the running and the taxes and the insurance and all the other things, the other part. Yeah, it kind of chewed me up, spit me out for a minute. I'm getting my feet under me now. We kind of shifted back to where I'm more comfortable in the industrial sector. 23 looks like it's going to be a really good year for me, but 22 has been rough, man.
Good for you, bro. No, man, they're definitely expensive lessons, and that's what I call them. I mean, literally before, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 hours before I came on this episode, I made a post literally today. At the time of this recording, I fired, I not only did I fired three clients, which is some pretty good reoccurring revenue for us. And I canceled about a little over $59,000 in outstanding invoices. And my status literally stated that. And I said, these are some expensive lessons, but lessons that I'm glad I'm learning. Some of the most expensive lessons I've learned have been some of the ones that have propelled me to where I am. So I have no feeling or no doubts that you're about to experience some growth when you start. The important lesson is don't have to learn these a second time, right? Like, learn your lesson the first time, bro.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, man. That's a freaking awesome story. You fired them, are they, just out of curiosity, like out of alignment with kind of who you guys are, or?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So like what we had to do is it's like the 80-20 rule, 20% of our clientele is making up 80% of our revenue. And, so we just realized that a lot of these were time sucks, even though on paper, if you were to put them on paper, like, are they profitable? Yes. But then when you start looking at like mental capacity, mental drain, the teams, like when their name comes up, the team morale, like, when you start taking all that stuff into consideration, that was kind of what the deciding factors were. And it was an easy call once we all verbally said it and realized that we all had been thinking it for quite some time. It was an easy discussion. And I mean, we're not, our name is definitely what we have to push us forward. So, we gave them a 60-day, like, hey, we'll give you 30 days to find someone else if you want to, or you can bump up to what we believe, we're worth for this, amount of effort that we're putting out. Or if you have no one else, we will refer you to someone that we do truly care about. We'll give you the same level of consistency and results. So we gave them 3 options, and it's basically at that point, it's like, it's on you, but we can hold our head high knowing that we did the right thing.
Yeah, man. As I was listening to your story, a couple of things jumped out, but I think the one that jumped out because it resonated with me so deeply is when you said that your wife had your back, man. Like, how important is that to have a ride or die? Man, mine has been a freaking trooper this past year, and I
mean, dude, I'll tell you, I kind of got, I got goosebumps just when you mentioned that. Like, so I'm in a lot of networks, some bigger ones, some of the biggest that are in the country. And I go to a lot of events and I meet a lot of people, and, that conversation comes up a lot. It's not always been easy, but I can promise you this right now, that I can tell a difference in men and the way their businesses are ran. And I could tell you if their wives support them or not, based on the way they run their businesses.
I can see that.
Yeah. It's serious, bro.
I could see that. I mean, I don't know, me personally, without that at home, without that piece of it, Like it's almost kind of like nothing else really even matters that much.
No, it doesn't. And I'll tell you, there's my head of sales. We paid him a little over 200 grand last year, and he came from making $17 an hour. And I'm not saying that as like any like woe is me story, but I wanted to preface it where we were in Vegas, which is where he lives, on top of the world, which is the bar and restaurant that's on top of the Space Needle there, and it like circulates as it takes like 60 minutes to do like a full rotation. Anyways, it's just the ambiance, the vibe. It's a cool spot. It's my favorite place to go. Every time we go to Vegas, we got to eat there. And we were done with dinner and up on the top floor having some drinks and just catching up, talking about life. And this is before he worked for me. He was my best friend prior, still is. And he is a connector. Like if anyone, like this dude, I don't know anyone that's got anything negative to say about him. This dude is surrounded by multi-millionaires all day long, like in the cannabis space. I mean, these people are millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. And they all value him and they all trust him. And I've never seen someone to have so much validity to their name where he could walk into a room and say, hey, y'all need to have a conversation. And they're like, yeah, of course. And he could walk out the room and they will leave with a brand new business or doing business together. Like there's no, like, it's like, look, clearly we need to there's some synergy here. Let's figure it out. And if Jaybird vouches for you, then you're solid. I mean, this dude's just incredible. And, he wasn't in his feels or anything by any means, but you could tell that he was eager for his chance. Here he is surrounded by entrepreneurs, business owners, very, very wealthy and quote unquote successful people. In the same breath, and I had to stop him right in his tracks because in that same breath, he said, but bro, like me and my girl are good. Me and my girls, my daughters were good. Like I'm happy. Like I love what I do. I love where I'm at. Like I just, and then he started to kind of go into just about the money thing. And he wasn't not financially hurting. Like he lived well below his means and all that. But I stopped him. I said, bro, like I can't tell you how many multimillionaires I know that would give it all away to have exactly what you have, So it wasn't this like grass is greener conversation because he's a very modest and understanding and like just sound guy. But like I had to kind of put some stuff in perspective where it's like, you can have one without the other, but sometimes you can have the other without having that. Right. And so I had to kind of to let him know that. And you could see pretty much at that point in time, like it clicked with him and he realized his time was coming. And then within, I don't know, probably within 4 months of that conversation, he was working with us and making more money than he ever had in his entire life. And it was really cool to see that transition happen.
Yeah, man. I mean, you probably know more entrepreneurs and business owners than I do. I mean, how many do you know that have all, bank accounts straight, but like no connection at home or starving for connection or their marriage isn't great or they don't have a relationship with their kids, like you have to have that perspective. Like, man, I think that's one of the things that I want to kind of get across to people in the work that I do. It doesn't really matter the money that you have if there's not some purpose behind it. I just feel like a lot of people kind of get caught up in the money, man. And money's just a small fraction. If you love what you do and you have purpose behind it and you're serving people, like the money piece, I don't even think about it. It just takes care of itself.
It definitely does, man. And it's unfortunate to see because, I come from, horrible past like relationships and, so does my wife. And it's just a beautiful thing now that we have each other and understanding like what we're trying to build here. But, unfortunately in the world that we live in, like, there is stuff around me that I see on a regular basis that I don't agree with. And honestly, like I don't put up with, like, I don't do business with cheaters. Like if you're going to cheat on your wife, like if I'm going to go to out of town with you or whatever, and you're going to be trying to hook up with some chick, like that is supposedly like your wife, your significant other, supposedly, and I'm using supposedly, like me and you know what this means, but supposedly the person that you love more than anybody on earth. And if you're going to screw her over, why would I ever get in business with you? Because you're clearly going to screw me over. There's no chance that you're going to love me more. Maybe if I'm making you a shit ton of money, which is actually what I do, but still, I'm not going to chance that. You know what I mean?
Kind of beside the point. Yeah, man. But sure, it says everything you need to know about character and integrity, and I'm right there with you, man. If that's, yeah, I don't have time for it, and I don't want to be around it. I don't even want that energy around me.
No, agreed. And honestly, too, like what you just said, man, like even if I wanted to be a cheater, bro, I don't have time. Like I can't keep up with no lies and this and that. And man, my girl, she crazy enough for more than one chick. So I'm just kidding.
So dropping back real quick, and I know you probably perceive. So going back to the accident and all that, you built one business, you go through all that, and you build another business. I mean, man, that's like the definition of resiliency in some point. What if you could pick one thing, to share about that, or something that what's the most important piece of the pie to make that happen?
To being resilient.
Yeah, to being able to come back and do it again, and just if you just had to kind of pick something.
Man, I think that there's a moment in a man's life specifically where they realize that no matter what, they can achieve their goals. I'm a firm believer that I don't care what your goals are, you can achieve it if you have enough time, you have the right people around you, you have the proper education, and all this stuff is achievable, right? Like people are like, "Oh, you can't extend time, or you can't make more time." Yes, you can. It's about leveraging other people's time, right? If me and you were to team up on a project, now I have 2 40-hour work weeks or 50-hour work weeks or whatever, right? Like time, is limited, but how you view time is not. So I think that once a man realizes that he can do whatever it is that he puts his mind to, you can become resilient to everything that approaches you, because you will learn that like whatever it is that you're dealing with right now won't last. All you got to do is outlast the suck, and you will achieve your goals. If you sit there and allow that to consume you, no, you won't. But that's the difference between being resilient and not being resilient, is understanding that, for me, if it's something that's not going to matter in 5 years, I don't spend 5 minutes worrying about it or stressing about it.
That's an awesome way to approach life, man, for sure. I say all the time, man, people, you're so much stronger than you think you are. And I firmly believe that when you're in those situations that you'll be led out of them as soon as you've learned whatever it is that you needed to learn in that situation.
100%.
Yeah, for real, man. Man, it's been awesome, man. It's good to get to know you, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Man, I'm honored to be here. Hopefully I did your podcast some justice, bro. I'm excited to speak about this.
For sure. Absolutely you did. It probably will be out week out. I don't have hardly anything ready to go, so probably be out maybe week after next or something like that. So I'll make sure I hit you up and so you can share it and all that good stuff. But man, good to know you, man. I appreciate you, and we'll see all you guys next week.
I'm past the point of return, it's for the legacy. The road can feel cold, but this my destiny. No more pretending or tripping over excuses. Temper flare, need to take it out on music, on a mission to be